Chapter 14. Urban Combat. Urban guerrillas are surrounded by potential informants and government spies. They must frequently move around unarmed, and the government can usually react to their actions much faster than they can in the countryside. For this reason, urban guerrilla groups were usually small and fought back with short-duration actions. Many urban guerrillas lived in the countryside or suburbs and only entered the cities for combat. Vignette 1. Kidnapping a Soviet Advisor by Commander Shahabuddin. We were in contact with an Afghan driver from Paktia province who drove for a civilian Soviet advisor. The advisor worked with the DRA mining industry. We wanted to kidnap the advisor. The driver had trained for a short time in the USSR, and so the advisor trusted him. The driver agreed to help us, but we did not trust the driver and asked him to prove his loyalty. He stated, "I will bring my family to stay in a Mujahideen-controlled area as proof of my trustworthiness." The driver came to our camp with his wife and family. I sent his family to my village of Shawaki to stay while we captured the advisor. One day, the driver informed us that the advisor's wife was coming from the Soviet Union to join him. The driver would take the advisor to the airport to meet his wife. We gave the driver a small handheld radio and told him to contact us if there were any changes. We would contact him within 20 minutes of his call. The driver called us one morning. He reported that the advisor's wife was arriving that day and that no one would accompany the advisor to the airport but the driver. We dressed one of our Mujahideen in a DRA military officer's uniform and put him in a car and sent him to wait at the bridge over the Kabul River at the microrayon in East Kabul. He got out of the car and waited for the Soviet advisor's car. Soon, the Soviet advisor's car arrived. The driver pointed at our Mujahideen and told the advisor, "That's my brother. He's going to the airport. Can we give him a ride?" The advisor agreed, and they stopped to pick up the officer. He got back into the back seat behind the advisor and pulled out a pistol. He held the pistol to the advisor's back and ordered the driver to drive to Shawaki. Another car, carrying 8 of our Mujahideen armed with pistols with silencers, followed the advisor's car. We had no trouble with the checkpoints since the guards saw the DRA officer's uniform, saluted, and waved the car and its security tail right through. We took the advisor to Shawaki and burned his car. The government launched a major search effort, so we moved the advisor again to the Abdara Valley. Government helicopters strafed Shawaki after we left and landed search detachments trying to find the advisor. We kept the advisor in the Abdara Valley near the Chakari Monument, the Buddhist pinnacle, for 2 days. Then we moved him to Tezin near Jalalabad for a few more days. Finally, we took him across the border to Peshawar, Pakistan, where we turned him over to one of the factions. I do not know what happened to him. Vignette 4. 4 Urban Bomb Attacks by Haji Mohammed Yaqub. Bombing is a necessary part of being an urban guerrilla. The object is to create fear and take out selected individuals. We got our explosives from Pakistan. Commander Azizuddin and Commander Meskinyar were our contacts in Pagman district who forwarded the explosives and detonators to us. They used elderly people as our go-betweens to carry messages and explosives to us. In April 1980, we carried out an attack on the Radio Afghanistan building. This housed the central offices for Afghanistan radio and television broadcasting. Soviet advisors worked at the building where they oversaw radio and television broadcasting and edited and cleared the news before broadcast. The Soviets were our targets. We received a bomb from our contacts and gave it to a woman who worked in the radio station. She smuggled it into the station and armed it. The bomb went off at 1000 hours on a workday. The explosion killed 2 Afghan party activists and 2 Soviets. It also wounded a DRA soldier. For some time after the blast, Afghanistan radio and TV stopped broadcasting. After this, the security procedures for the building were greatly increased and everyone was carefully searched. Our lady contact later managed to get herself transferred to the payroll office of Kabul University. 2. The communist regime converted Kabul University into a center for communist indoctrination. We decided to target the primary party organization at Kabul University in January 1981. Bombing seemed to be our best option. By this time, our lady contact at Radio Afghanistan was working in the payroll office at Kabul University. We gave her 2 bombs. She planted one in the university administration building and set the timer for 1100 hours. She set the second in the primary party organization building and set the timer for 1100 hours 45. The theory was that, after the first bomb went off, people would mill around the site and then the key party activists would gather in the primary party organization building to discuss the bombing. The second bomb would attack this concentration. Our plan worked as we thought it would. Following the blast in the administration building, the party secretaries of all the various communist organizations gathered in the primary party organization building. The blast killed a Soviet advisor and several party secretaries. The bombs killed a total of 10 and wounded an unknown number. 3. On 6 May 1983, we bombed the Ministry of Interior building in Kabul. We planted 27 kilograms of explosive in a room on the second floor of the building close to the office of the minister. The bombs were hidden in 4 large flower pots that had been there for some time. We had a contact who was a gardener for the Ministry of the Interior. He agreed to smuggle in the explosives, plant the bombs, and set them for detonation. We trained him how to do the job. He mixed the explosives with limestone and smuggled them in plastic bags over a period of time. We planned to detonate the bombs during the daytime for maximum casualties. However, our HIH headquarters in Peshawar overruled us and told us to set the bombs off at night. HIH wanted to keep Minister of the Interior Gulab Zoy alive since he was a leading member of the Khalq faction and his survival would ensure that the friction between the Khalq and Parchim Communist Party factions continued. The gardener set all the time pencils for 2300 hours when he went home at 1600 hours. There was no sense setting different times since the building would virtually be deserted. The time bombs went off on time and killed 4 duty officers and damaged the minister's office. If we had set off the bombs during the day, we would have killed Gulab Zoy, Ghazi, the bodyguard, Sharudin, his aide-de-camp, and perhaps 100 others. The DRA closed roads around the building for 24 hours and conducted an investigation. However, they thought that the blast was connected to some internal quarrel within the communist leadership and never suspected our gardener. 4. The Soviets lived in the eastern microrayon region of Kabul. We decided to attack the Soviets right where they were living. There was a bus stop in the area where the Soviets would wait for their buses to work. We checked the timing of the buses. There was a daily 0745 morning bus that drew the most Soviets. We needed to establish a pattern so that we could leave a bomb without drawing attention. We got a pushcart and loaded it with the best fruits and vegetables that we could get. The produce came from Parwan province. We charged reasonable prices. The Soviets and local people got used to seeing us there and buying from us. We kept this up for several days. At night, we would work on the pushcart. We put in a false bottom in the cart so that we could put our bombs in the bottom of the cart and they would be undetected even if the cart were inspected. We attacked on the 2nd of October 1983. We loaded 5 bombs into the bottom of the cart. We inserted time pencil fuses in the bombs and set them for 0743. Then we put in the false bottom and loaded the cart with produce. 6 mujahideen carried out the attack. None of us carried weapons. We brought the cart to the bus stop as usual. 13 Soviets crowded around it to see what was on sale. We slipped away from the cart and mixed with the local people. The bombs went off at 0743 just before the bus arrived. The blast killed 13, wounded 12, and damaged a nearby store. The DRA searched the crowd but made no arrests from our group. Commentary. Many people find such bombing attacks morally reprehensible, yet have no qualms when much larger bombs are dropped from aircraft. Neither type of bombing attack is surgical, and both types kill innocent bystanders. The only real difference is in the size of the bomb and the means of delivery. The Mujahideen lacked an air force but retained a limited bombing option. The Soviets had an air force and conducted large-scale bombing attacks throughout the war. Vignette 3. Incident at Kala-i-Jabar by Mohammad Humayun Shaheen. During Ramadan, June of 1981, 5 Mujahideen were assigned to meet with a Soviet soldier in Kala-i-Jabar to buy some Kalashnikov magazines from him. Kala-i-Jabar is some 3 kilometers south of the Darul Aman Soviet military base. Our group leader was Alozai, who was known as Sher Khan. Hukum Khan, 2 others, and I made up the group. We went to Kala-i-Jabar and met with the Soviet soldier. He said that his name was Hassan and he showed us his merchandise. We agreed to buy the magazines and pulled out a wad of 50 Afghani notes to pay him with. The Soviet soldier was not familiar with the 50 Afghani note. He demanded that we pay in 100s. Since we could not speak Russian, Sher Khan tried to show him that 2 50 Afghani notes equaled 1 100 Afghani note. He even wrote it on a scrap of paper. The Soviet, however, apparently did not understand and kept demanding 100 Afghani notes. We did not have any 100 Afghani notes. As we tried to communicate, the Soviet got louder and louder. We were fairly close to the Soviet camp and were beginning to worry that this might be a trap. Hukum Khan grabbed the Soviet in a headlock and wrestled him to the ground while Commander Sher Khan stabbed the Soviet to death. Then we grabbed the rifle magazines, plus the Soviet's AK-74 assault rifle, and left the area. Commentary. There was a regular commerce between the Soviet soldiers and the Afghan populace. Soviet conscripts would sell fuel, ammunition, weapons, batteries, and military equipment for hashish, food, and Afghan money. They would use the money in the bazaars of Kabul to buy Western stereos, music tapes, cigarettes, and clothing. Some goods were available in the Soviet PX, but conscripts had little access or cash, so they tried to shop locally for items they wanted. Vignette 4. Afshar Ambush by Commander Asil Khan. On 28 May 1982, I led a group of 4 Mujahideen in an ambush at the very gates of the Soviet garrison in Kabul. At that time, elements of the Soviet 103rd Airborne Division and some other units were based in Darul Aman, about 10 kilometers southwest of downtown Kabul. The headquarters of the Soviet 40th Army was also located there in the Tajbeg Palace. I was a small unit commander in my father's front. My father is Haji Daulat, and the front's main base was at Morgirin, 10 kilometers west of Darul Aman. I selected the ambush site after we spent several days in reconnaissance and surveillance of the Soviet traffic around Darul Aman. During the reconnaissance, we detected a pattern in Soviet vehicular movement along the road from Kabul to the Soviet headquarters in the Tajbeg Palace. Just north of the Soviet Darul Aman base is the small village of Afshar, map 14-1 Afshar. It was a typical suburban bazaar with several grocery and fresh fruit stores and stalls. Soviet soldiers frequented this bazaar and would stop their vehicles there to buy cigarettes, food, and imported vodka. Afshar looked like a good ambush site. Soviet soldiers felt secure there. There was room enough to set up an ambush, and site entrance and exit were fairly easy. The path to and from the ambush was mostly concealed, and we could easily reach Mujahideen bases and safe houses in the Chardehi district using this path. We spent the day of the ambush in Kala-i-Bakhtiar, a village 6 kilometers to the west of the ambush site. We had 4 AK-47s and a non-Soviet manufactured light anti-tank grenade launcher. In the early evening, we moved out toward Afshar. It was the Muslim month of Ramadan, when Muslims fast during the entire day. Few people were out at sunset, since this is the time to break the daily fast. Since our ambush site was in the immediate vicinity of the Soviet base, I decided to conduct a very quick attack on a single Soviet vehicle and to take prisoners if possible. We moved through a narrow street of Afshar, which opened onto the main road north of the Darul Aman Palace. Around 1930 hours, as my leading rifleman reached the street intersection, a Soviet GAZ-66 truck approached from the east on its way to the military camp. The truck had 5 passengers, a driver, a soldier in the right front seat, and 3 soldiers in the back. One of the soldiers had a backpacked radio. I told my anti-tank gunner to fire when the vehicle was in the kill zone. He fired, but he narrowly missed the truck. The truck came to a sudden halt, and its occupants jumped out of the vehicle, took up positions, and started firing at random. During the brief firefight, we killed 1 Soviet soldier. 2 soldiers ran away to the southwest toward their camp. 1 soldier crawled under the truck near the tires. The radio man rushed into an open grocery store and hid there. One of my mujahideen was close to the shop behind a concrete electric pylon. I told him to follow the Soviet radio man into the front of the shop while I went into the shop's back door and introduced myself as a friend. The Soviet soldier was flustered at first, but when he saw the foreign light anti-tank weapon in the hands of my mujahideen, he uttered, "Dushman," enemy. He kept quiet as we bound his hands and led him out back. I recalled my team and we quickly left the area. The whole action lasted only a few minutes. Fearing enemy retaliation, we moved out swiftly in the dark, heading to Kala-i-Bakhtiar. From there, we went on to Kala-i-Bahadur Khan, Kala-i-Jabar Khan, and Kala-i-Kazi, until we reached our front base at Morgiran around 2200 hours. We kept our prisoner there for 3 days and then transferred him to NIFA headquarters in Peshawar, Pakistan. Commentary. Detailed reconnaissance and knowledge of the enemy's movement and security arrangements contributed to a workable ambush right in the heart of the Soviet garrison area. The Soviets had not posted a vulnerable point adjacent to their garrison either through overconfidence or negligence on the part of lower-level commanders. Selection of a small group of fighters with an effective mix of weapons and good selection of the ambush site played a significant role in the action. However, using a non-standard anti-tank weapon probably caused the gunner to miss a large target at close range. One wonders if the gunner had any training or practice with the weapon before he used it. An RPG-7 and an experienced gunner were needed. One wonders why the Soviets stopped their truck in the middle of a kill zone once the Mujahideen rocket missed them. Since the Mujahideen rocket missed the vehicle, there was no need for the truck to stop, and the soldiers could have escaped through the small arms fire before the anti-tank gunner had a chance to reload. The Soviets failed to react effectively. Stopping in the kill zone under small arms fire was a risky and unwise move that cost the Soviets the life of 1 soldier while another one was captured.